All right. Well, that sound means good afternoon and welcome to our New York Association on Independent Living, or NYAIL, that's NYAIL, webinar series. I'm Blaze Bryant, the communications specialist for the association. Thanks so much for being here as we're going to learn more about supportive decision making, which is a webinar that we covered um, almost 4 years ago when the other folks who were doing this work before were doing it. And before we get into the presentation, just a few quick housekeeping things. Number one, as you now know, the webinar is being recorded. I will share the recording and the slides with you later this week. Number two is that the chat is disabled. This is a screen reader accessibility accommodation. If you have anything that you'd like to ask our presenters, or if you run into any technical things, you can put it in the Q&A box. Number three, for anyone using ASL interpretation, there is a box on your screen. I believe it is down on the, like toward the bottom. And you can adjust the size of the box to your liking. And last but certainly not least, I'll be sending out a follow-up survey. This is a very general one about your thoughts for the webinar, feedback, and any webinar ideas you have to improve the series. It's all anonymous. I literally do not ask your name. It is 1000% anonymous. And with that, I'm going to introduce our presenters from AIMS Services, who are now the new statewide service provider for supportive decision making. We have Lacey Miller Kitchen and Alexis Harrington. So I'm going to cut my video and audio and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Blaze. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us this afternoon. My name is Alexis Harrington, and I am the Chief of Program Implementation at AIMS Services. And I will be joined by Lace, our Director of Supported Decision Making, later on in this presentation. So first and foremost, thank you for filling out the survey in advance so that we could get a better understanding of what you already know, and also understand what you'd like to know. There's a really great combination of what you all kind of already know. I think supported decision making has to do with someone assisting people to make important decisions. A person can make decisions on their own with the support of a group of their loved ones. And then, right, some very thoughtful reflections on what you already know about supported decision making. So we've got a great little mix and spread of people who have some background on it, and then there are some of you who do not. So if we go forward, you can see what you'd like to know. Some of you want to know everything, no pressure. We will definitely try to make sure that you walk away from this webinar knowing everything that you need to know for supported decision making. We will absolutely explain what the process looks like, how to sign up. We will talk a bit about the comparison of guardianship to supported decision making, and you will also learn, if you already are in guardianship or you're contemplating guardianship, how that kind of fits in this process as well. So if we can go to the next slide, without further ado, we will just dive right in. So for those of you who have heard of supported decision making before, and Blaze kind of insinuated and hinted at this, that there was an entity before us called Supported Decision Making New York, or SDMNY, and that was a consortium that came out of CUNY Hunter. And so we are lucky enough to have had supported decision making be in existence in some way, shape, or form since 2016. And so we are lucky. We are the agency that is going to scale this program up and deliver it across the entire state of New York to anybody who meets the qualifications. And Lace will kind of go into more detail on how to qualify for this service and what it looks like. Now, what is guardianship? I think a lot of you are probably familiar of what it is, but it is this legal process in which the right and power to make decisions is actually taken away from somebody, and that's because of their alleged incapacity. And that is given to another person, also known as their guardian. And so this is a process that started way back in 1969 under the Surrogates Court Procedure Act. You might have heard it as referred to as 17A guardianship. And what that really means is that if somebody has guardianship over another person, that person has all rights removed from themselves and placed with another person. That happens forever unless it is revisited and repetitioned with the court. So that means ultimately that person will never be able to make their own decisions, including voting, marriage, ability to enter into a contract, deciding where you want to live, with whom, healthcare decisions, all of the above. Anything that is a legal decision is taken away from that person if guardianship has been determined for them and appointed to the person. So, in terms of how supported decision making is an alternative, this obviously is a way that can allow somebody to retain their rights. This allows somebody to kind of pick what are the risks that are worth taking. If you have been able to make your own decisions, you probably overlook the fact that you take on risks each and every day that you are able to make a decision. That isn't taken away from somebody if supported decision making is the path that is taken. This also helps identify a network of supporters, and supporters have a legal obligation that is outlined in Article 82. And it is a human right to make a decision. And so that is really important. And the biggest highlight of this law is that somebody is able to exercise their human right to make decisions. Now, why are we covering the law? Well, it's a really exciting reason. In 2022, there was a law that was passed to legally recognize supported decision making. Why that is such a big deal, as you could see from a couple of slides ago, guardianship has been around, that process has been around since 1969. And so for many people, that has been the only option that has been available to support their loved one. And so now we are in this super exciting space where since 2022, this is legally recognized. So we wanted to make sure we covered some of the really critical components of the law, so that you can really understand how critical this is and how exciting it is that the state really put their money where their mouth is. So the first really important and exciting point is that there is a presumption of capacity made with this law. So what does that mean? So when somebody turns 18, that means they become an adult. So unless somebody has guardianship already, this law presumes that everybody who turns 18 is an adult and has capacity to make their own decisions. So, guardianship is no longer that default path. We are able to allow people to make informed decisions when they're planning for their family's future. And this also starts from the decision that people can make their own choices with the right supports. Um, Capacity equals person plus support. And we'll revisit that in just a minute. And the other important part is that this actually is an alternative to guardianship. One really exciting thing is that people are supposed to explore a less restrictive option than guardianship. And what we are starting to see is that surrogate court judges are actually stopping the guardianship process and asking the family and the decision maker to explore supported decision making prior to moving forward with guardianship. We are excited about that. We know not everyone is excited about that, but at least it provides everybody with that informed decision and to see if supported decision making can be right for them. And then the agreements are formal and they are legally recognized. So Article 82 recognizes these legal contracts that come from the process of supported decision making. These supported decision making agreements must be accepted by third parties. That is probably one of the most exciting things about this law is that it actually must be accepted. It's not just a piece of paper. It is explaining to third parties, I am able to make my own decisions. I have the capacity to do so. And here is the reg that is cited and exactly why you need to accept this. Um, and then last but not least, a myth that people kind of need to be debunked is that supporters help, but they do not make decisions. So unlike guardianship, where the guardian is making decisions for the person, that is not happening here. The person is identifying who they want to support and how. And Lace will go into more details about identifying supporters and what the process of supported decision making looks like. But this is a really critical component because even as a parent, you're not just assumed as a supporter. Your child does have to identify you as a supporter and in which area of your life that they would like support from. Next slide. All right, so you've heard some of the critical components of the regs. Now you kind of understand what our core beliefs are, that everybody has a right to make decisions, everyone receives support when making decisions, and that everyone is entitled to learn from their decisions. So I'm not sure if there are any emojis or anything that you all can put in there. But let me just ask a question and you can answer in your head. I'll telepathically receive your responses. So, are there any adults on this webinar who has made every single decision on their own?
This is Blaze. Let me see if I can fix the chat settings so that you can
Oh, awesome.
I'm going to do I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
Um let's see. Um let's see. Actually, it is there. Looks like the chat is set where you can put in the chat and hosts and panelists will get it.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
It looks like it. If it doesn't,
Can someone try sending a
oh
test message in there?
oh wait, hang on. I'm gonna there we go. Yep, it looks like it's coming through.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome. So
um
if you're comfortable
are
and you
you
want to, oh,
yeah, are you seeing messages coming through?
I'm seeing the Q&A, but I'm not, it says chat disabled.
Okay, there. Oh, um, there we go. Try it now. I'm sorry. Um,
No, you're
there was a
good.
thing that was grayed out. So, folks, if you want to give the chat another shot, go for it.
Thanks, Blaze.
Your thing.
All right, so if anybody's comfortable, oh, still disabled. Okay, don't
I'm
worry
s-
about it. Don't worry.
I
It's all
I
good.
apologize.
No, don't worry, don't worry. I thought it was funny because I would telepathically hear everybody's answer. So what I heard was what I've heard in other presentations as well is that there are no adults who have made every single decision on their own. And furthermore, I have then kind of followed up and asked, has every decision that you've made, oh, the chat's open, yay!
There we go. We got it. The
Woohoo!
little technical snafu. There we go.
All good. Thank you, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Yes, it is.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. So, how many of you lovely people my tel that's hilarious. Your telepathy was working correctly. Awesome. So, who has only made good decisions, like never made a bad decision? Yeah, okay. You all are brave. You're brave. Okay, so some of you have you're laughing at us. This is the point, right? This is the point. Because none of us have made perfect decisions. None of us have made all of the decisions on our own. And who's even judging if a decision is good or bad? Chances are those decisions that you're thinking of that may not have been the best decision in the world, you learned something from that. And you had the chance and ability to learn something from that decision. So, with that, I am going to throw the ball over to Lace to talk a bit more about the process itself, and how to make referrals. And Lace, I'm not seeing any slides, just so you know.
Oh, at all?
No.
Does anybody see the slides? Did they go away?
Oh, huh. Oh, wait, I can see them now. I think
Okay. It was
interesting.
you.
Yeah. Shocker.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Lace Miller Kitchen. Thank you for being vulnerable and answering those questions, although they might seem like silly questions to ask. It is really important for all of us to remain on the same page when we understand what supported decision making is, and to explore that everybody makes decisions that we are able to learn and grow from. That is the framework for supported decision making, the ability to make decisions for ourselves and be able to earn the successes and earn what the failures or mistakes will get us. So, in order to participate in supported decision making through facilitation under OPWDD, there are 3 requirements. The first, you have to want to participate. So, right from the beginning, the person who is interested in facilitated supported decision making will learn about it and decide if this is the right path for them. You also should be at least 18. Another one of those silly questions is, at 18, I did not make every decision correctly, and likely all of you listening at 18 have made some questionable decisions. So we don't want to start too early with working with people before they're 18. So we start at around 17 just to give people the opportunity to understand this process and ensure that this is something they want to continue with as maybe a diversion from guardianship. But again, we just don't want to start too soon because we do understand that at 17 and 18, the experiences might not be vast enough to start prior to that. So be at least 18 and then want to participate. The second is meet OPWDD eligibility requirements. And that doesn't mean that that person needs to be receiving OPWDD services, but they just have to be OPWDD eligible. And then once those are completed, those two requirements, facilitation is completely free under the grant over the next 5 years, which is why OPWDD has that eligibility requirement, because they are funding that. So the referral and intake process, once the referral is made, you can make it for yourself, you can make it for somebody else. You express your interest, and our intake coordinator will reach out to you to discuss what supported decision making is. They'll share some brochures and leaflets, some questions, and then have an opportunity to set up a virtual meeting or a phone call with you to understand a little bit more about what facilitated supported decision making could look like. And then if you are ready to continue, you agree that this is something you want to do, there's an additional intake form which covers some of that eligibility requirements. It gets a little bit more of your information regarding your hobbies and interests, so we can match you to a facilitator that we feel might be most appropriate and able to fulfill those requirements that you may have. So if you are somebody who lives in the western part of the state and you would like in-person facilitation, we will use some of those identifiers to match you with the facilitator able to meet in person in that location. Once you start facilitation, once you are matched with a facilitator, you're also matched with a mentor. And the mentor is an enhanced supervisor for the facilitator. They're there to guide them through the facilitation process for you, discuss any barriers you might be experiencing as a facilitator, or assist the decision maker and their families in addition to the support of the facilitator. The facilitator is really critical to this partnership with each decision maker, because they will spend the time with each decision maker who's interested. They will navigate and unpack decisions. They will talk with your supporters and your family members, and they will ultimately be the ones that will support each decision maker with that signed formal legal SDMA. So this facilitation process, I'll spend a little bit on this slide because there is a lot to unpack on this slide. So you have the 3 phases for facilitation. Phase 1, the exploration of decision making. This is that beginning phase when the facilitator really works with the decision maker to understand what their past experiences have been with decisions. They'll understand the exposure to decisions that each decision maker has had, their strengths, weaknesses, interests, best ways of receiving support, and build that confidence needed to make decisions. They'll navigate to phase 2, which is doing pretty much the same thing, but with the supporters. So if I identified Alexis as one of my supporters, my facilitator would also work with Alexis to understand decision-making and the 7 steps to decision-making, which you'll see on the right. So the 7 steps to decision-making are gathering information, understanding information, identify and consider possibilities and alternatives, thinking about consequences related to the decision, weighing your options and deciding, communicating the decision to others, and then acting out and doing that decision or making that decision. And so each phase of supported decision-making facilitation uses these 7 steps to understand how each person wants to receive support in all of the decision-making areas of one's life. Could be housing, money, education, community access, medical. And so if I am choosing Alexis to be my supporter in areas of money, I might choose to have her help me understand information and weigh my options and decide. And then I can ask any supporter to navigate each of those areas in any of these 7 ways. So when we unpack this, it can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months because we really believe in going at the pace of each person. We are presuming capacity in all spaces. So we will take the time necessary to go through these 7 steps in each decision-making area and work with those supporters. If you've navigated this field at any point, then services are a little bit cumbersome, and we want to make sure this is a process fully designed around the person and their unique support needs. Phase 3 is when everybody comes together and they will create this legal document, which is the Supported Decision-Making Agreement, or SDMA. This is what is legally recognized and required to be accepted by third parties. Some of the things that we also go over within facilitation is the dignity of risk. And this is important for each decision maker to understand, but it's also important for the supporters to understand. This is a concept that has been around for a very long time, and each time we talk about it, we need to dive in a little bit deeper on what the dignity of risk truly means for each person. And the risk in decision making is making those poor decisions, but it also means making really good ones and the opportunity to do either of those. So what is good for me might not be the choice I make for myself. So everybody has received a doctor's visit once in their life, I'm assuming, and maybe they've instructed you to cut back on salt intake. You might still choose to eat foods that are high in salt. So what is good for you might not be the choice you make for yourself. Small example, but there's a lot of spaces in our life when people say we should or we shouldn't do something, and we ultimately get to decide what we want to do. That is the dignity of risk. Success looks different for everybody. Some people might navigate success in a straight line. I truly envy those people who can navigate success in a straight line, make all the right decisions at every turn, and only have a forward trajectory. In most of our lives, we navigate success by taking some setbacks, because then we are able to understand what led to that setback, or feel the pain of the loss or the implications that could be negative, but we're able to navigate that to grow forward. So if you think of success as a straight line, we understand success as a squiggly line. It can go backwards, forwards, multiple times, but as long as you are trying to understand the better ways to make the decisions in your life, you navigate that. And so success looks different for everybody because it could look like some setbacks. My success has absolutely looked like some setbacks, but I am very grateful I was able to have the opportunity to make those decisions that led to setbacks, because that's how I've grown, which leads us to the failure being a natural part of growth. When Alexis polled on, does anybody make mistakes or make bad decisions, those failures aren't necessarily a negative. It's a natural part of growth. If we learn from those failures, then we're able to succeed in ways that benefit us. And to the example at the beginning, what is good for me might not be the decision I make. So learning how to navigate that failure will be the decisions that you make for yourself. Supporting informed decision-making doesn't have to equal good decision-making. Throughout facilitation, our job as a facilitator and mentor isn't to make good decision-makers. It's to support the information, the informed decision-making, those 7 steps to decisions in each decision-making area. And then our opinion of a decision doesn't make it good or bad. There are legal implications of certain decisions, sure, but my opinion of your decision doesn't make it good or bad. It just makes it my opinion. And so navigating that phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1, working with the decision maker, and phase 2, working with the supporters, allowing the supporters to understand their opinions of decisions. What makes a meaningful life? It might look different for both people. Again, legal implications are different with decision making, but the opinions are what we really try to talk about with this dignity of risk piece in phase 2. So then the supported decision-making agreement. This is that legal document that outlines the areas and sources of support determined by that person. It goes into each of the 8 designated decision-making areas: housing, medical, money, and the 7 steps to make a decision. This document is flexible. It can carry with you as long as you want it in your life. If you want to update it 6 months after you initially signed it, absolutely. The people in my life at 18 are not the same people in my life now. And allowing people to honor those change in relationships is what makes this person-centered. Alexis mentioned how guardianship isn't revisited. We revisit supported decision-making agreements as often or as needed for the person in their life and what changes. If their experience changed to certain decisions and they no longer want to receive support in that area, or somebody in their life has chosen no longer to support them, they can update it to be the most true reflection of the supports they want. It was enacted in 2022 and finally implemented within regulations in 2025. So it's relatively new, although it's been around since 2022. Which makes us even more excited to be able to speak with you today about this, because it is new in New York State, being able to offer it to everybody under this OPWDD grant. The types of supported decision-making facilitation that each decision maker can enter into are different and unique for each person in their circumstances. If somebody is already under guardianship, they can still participate in supported decision-making through the informal setup, which very similarly mirrors the formal facilitated supported decision-making. However, there is no agreement at the end that can be upheld legally because they are already under guardianship. This is a way that we can offer supported decision-making education to the decision maker and the supporters. So if guardianship is still what each party desires, and that's what was dictated by that surrogate court, we are still able to support each family in navigating what informed decision making looks like even under guardianship, which is a really unique opportunity to meet with each family where they're at. They can also continue on with the informal supported decision making with an agreement, and the agreement can be used in court if their case leads to restoration. If each decision maker desires to restore their rights, they can use the agreement as a resource to the surrogate court, and understanding that they do have capacity. Under guardianship, it was proven that they did not, or deemed that they lacked capacity. And because supported decision-making presumes capacity, this is a way that they can show the surrogate court that they do have capacity to receive support for each decision. That person plus support equals capacity. Then they can enter into a formal facilitated SDMA if their rights were restored, or they can navigate a formal facilitated SDMA if they are not under guardianship. So just at the age of 18, this can take effect legally. This is that formalized process. This is an infographic that shows the informal supported decision-making process under guardianship, some common instruments that are utilized, and then supported decision-making as that formal supported decision-making agreement. And I'll go over it a little bit more in this slide. So what's important to know for people who are interested in supported decision-making is that you're not on an island. The point of supported decision-making is not to allow each person to be on an island to make decisions alone. It's truly honoring the support that is desired for their life to make the most informed decisions that they want. Sometimes people might have a rep payee to support them with navigating some parts of their money. Sometimes somebody might want a healthcare proxy to act on their behalf if they need it. I have HIPAA consents on the doctor's appointments that I attend. I don't have an agreement or am under guardianship, but this is something that I utilize in my life. So these are things that can be used within supported decision-making, especially if there's a family or somebody in their life that really wants to aid and support, and the decision maker wants them to have that support, then they can utilize an ABLE account or a living will or a power of attorney. You can utilize those within a formal agreement. The decision maker can outline if they do have any other instruments, or they can choose to omit that. It's up to them if what they want to do. We wanted to leave room for people to ask questions. This can sometimes be a topic that inspires a lot of people and they're excited about it, but it can also scare some people who are nervous or who are fearful of certain decisions that they're thinking a loved one or somebody they support might make. So we wanted to offer enough time to answer some questions or make ourselves available in the future should you do have additional questions. Feel free to email our supported decision making at aimservicesinc.org email, scan the QR code, and you can learn a little bit more about it or reach out again for additional support. So we did want to allow enough space and time to answer any questions you should have. And if anybody would like to go back to a different slide, I'm able to do that as well.
We have a bunch of time. We've got this is Blaze here. We've got I think we booked an hour and a half for this, so we've got until 2:30. The one question that I'm curious about before we get to the other questions is I know AIM had to go through you all had to go through a bit of a process to become the main provider of of SDM support. So I'm curious as to what went into all of that.
Great question, Blaze. So there was that pilot program at the beginning through Cooney Hunter, who really championed all of supported decision making. And once that was in its next iteration, OPWDD wanted to really embody and move this forward. So they put out a request for proposal of people who are interested in continuing supported decision making facilitation. And AIM submitted their proposal, and we were selected to be the recipient of supported decision making under their grant for the next 5 years. And I did see a question on the cost after the 5-year grant ends. That is a great part of all of this. So we have the ability to really tailor this and make recommendations for what the state should do next. And I will let Alexis speak a little bit more about that.
Thank you. This is what I'm super excited about. The sky is the limit here. And so, what we are going to be doing as a result of this grant is making recommendations on how this service goes into the future. So, our goal is that this would become a Medicaid service and maybe not even necessarily a waiver service, a state plan service to support somebody who meets the qualifications. You don't necessarily need that waiver level of care to make your own decisions or receive support to make your own decisions. So that is really what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years is collecting information, reviewing the data, reviewing the policies and trying to understand if there are any existing barriers or things that are preventing supported decision making from being successful. So a lot to come. We do recommend kind of signing up on our website. You can get some updates. We will have some listservs and all of that fun stuff. So we'll make sure that that goes out as part of the resources that get sent out afterwards.
There was another question on becoming a facilitator. We are excited to be able to partner soon with other agencies throughout New York State. We are physically located in Saratoga Springs, but we are able to partner with other like-minded agencies to continue facilitated supported decision-making and offer that throughout the state. So we are partnering with agencies in Long Island, New York City, out west, to be able to provide this. So if you are an employee of one of those subcontracted agencies, I would encourage you to reach out to them, letting them know that you're interested in becoming a facilitator or a mentor. Or if you are not part of a partner agency, still reach out, and there are ways you can support us in continuing to spread awareness and education about what supported decision making is, even if you are not under an agency that we are subcontracting with.
All right. We have some questions here.
I did see one about
Yeah,
challenging an agreement.
we've got a few here, and I'm going to take them in.
I can answer that one
Did
if you want,
did they disappear? Oh, okay. We have one from Joyce. Um, let's see.
We just got
Okay, all right, here we go. We'll take Aaron's question here. Aaron asks, how can you become a facilitator?
Yep, I just had answered that one.
Okay. Um, my apologies.
That's all right.
right after that one, please. The anonymous.
Yep, I got it. Okay, here we go. Um, the question here is, can a parent, family member, or oh, it just the joys of assistive technology. Sometimes things can just be a little clunky. Can a parent, family member, or other person challenge an individual's decision to enter into a supportive decision-making agreement?
Ultimately, anybody can challenge this. However, if you have an agreement that under that presumption of capacity, that is what is legally recognized. Legal capacity is different from that mental capacity. So if there is that evaluation that was challenged under guardianship, then that would take priority over supported decision-making agreements, because essentially a licensed physician deemed you unable to make decisions with a lack of capacity evaluation. Because supported decision making operates very strictly on that presumption of capacity, somebody can challenge it. However, it depends on the weight of that challenge. If there was an evaluation completed, which supported decision making under OPWDD does not have an evaluation of capacity, it is that presumption. So if somebody does challenge it, there is an attachment at the end of the supported decision-making agreement that allows for that decision maker to put the decision that they made, what supporter they utilized in making that decision, and then signing it, and they can present that if it is ever questioned by a legal entity, maybe a physician. If a family member challenges it, it's pretty much null and void because this is a legal document. However, again, we are the presumption of capacity. If there is a mental capacity evaluation that was already done or in the future was done, that might look a little bit different.
All right. Thank you very much. And Allison thanked us for a wonderful presentation and said we're glad to live in New York State. Absolutely. New York still is very much a leader in the disability rights space. Roger asked, what path does someone have who wants to um, I'm sorry, who wants to remove their guardian, whether they switch to SDM or to a different guardianship agreement here.
Awesome. This is a great question. We often say as a result of the informal supported decision-making path, a natural consequence is for restoration of rights. So if somebody is under guardianship, that is a court order. And again, navigating supported decision-making facilitation would be informal. However, if they do want to restore their rights, they can utilize either mental hygiene legal services or Disability Rights New York in unpacking what that could look like in the court system. So we would refer them to one of those entities as they would require, and they can navigate the restoration process through the court system. And that's where that would have to take place. If they wanted to switch to supported decision-making, again, they would need to restore their rights for it to be legally recognized, or they can go through the path using the informal supported decision-making agreement as a different resource to provide the court system with restoration. If they wanted to have a different guardian, again, that would be in that court system who originally deemed them under guardianship, or however that works. That would be the scope of one of those legal entities to explore with the decision maker who's interested, or the family who's interested in kind of relinquishing or no longer being in or being the guardian.
Oh, it helps when you're unmuted when you're talking. We have a bunch of time for questions up until 2:30, so feel free to keep putting your questions here in the Q&A box. Mary asks, how do I do this program? Meaning, I assume getting involved with SDM and signing up.
Yeah, so I've left this slide on the screen. If you are able to see that, it is a QR code that will bring you right to the website. If you are not able to navigate email or that QR code for the website, our contact information, which I can say Alexis's phone number, you can call her 518-982-3240, and she can help you navigating that contact us form or signing up for facilitation, or you can call myself, Lace, at 518-450-2803 if you are interested in signing up for facilitation.
Yes, and then the other thing too, because we just got a question here from Angela, can you send us some information? So I'm going to send out the recording and the slides, and I will include both Lace and Alexis on that email. I'm so sorry at the beginning I said Lacey.
That's all right.
For context, Lacey, we grew up in a neighboring town, and I've always called her Lacey. So that's my bad.
No, you're fine, Blaze. That's fine.
Well, I just wanted to be fair and correct. So again, when I send up the slides and the recording, Lace and Alexis will be on that email. That way you don't need to dig through the slides just to get their contact info.
I did want to share a little bit more about the referral sources that we are seeing, just to make people aware of what is happening and what's to come, hopefully, excuse me, statewide. So we are seeing referrals directly from the surrogate courts. And what that looks like is somebody is petitioning the court to be a legal guardian over somebody else, and the court sees their case and views this person as somebody able to navigate supported decision making, or instructing the family to pause guardianship and explore supported decision making. So we are seeing people who are paused, or their cases in surrogate courts are adjourned, for them to explore what facilitation could look like. So this is an incredible opportunity that the courts are taking into their hands, of providing this alternative to guardianship and saying this is the least restrictive approach to support people with their decisions. And navigating that can be tricky with some families and legal entities, as this is semi-new within their scope of maybe expertise or practice. So when we see those referrals, we are prioritizing that court opportunity for working with the decision maker because they are either at risk for guardianship or this is being explored on their behalf. So that is something that has been coming up much more frequently, which we are really excited to partner with those.
Lace, can you go to slide 13?
Yes, that's why I left them up just in case.
Thank you. Blaze, there was a question that came in. I answered it
Was the one
electronically.
about, was that the one about cost?
No, but I can cover that one too.
Okay.
There was a question about whether or not a supported decision-making agreement is indefinite or can it be fully overturned at a later time if the person receiving supports feels this is no longer needed. Really, really, really good question, Christopher. And hi, by the way. So the agreement can change at any point in time. This is a living and breathing agreement that is reflective of the decision maker's wishes. So anytime the decision maker would like to change, update, adjust supporters, adjust the scope, that is what we're here for. And they can reach out to us at any point in time to amend their agreement. So it is meant to evolve with the person over time and over their lifespan as needed. And then there was the question about cost. So I just wanted to pull this up because this will show you just the order of the steps. Again, you make that referral by scanning that QR code, and that will send us an email with all the information that you have completed. And then we would reach out and try to get some more information through the intake process. Because of the 5-year grant coming from OPWDD, there is no cost to participate in this service until the end of the grant. So that is why we have the eligibility criteria that you must meet OPWDD eligibility and why it is free, no cost. It does not impact your self-direction budget or anything of the sort. All you have to do is be 17 and a half, want to do this, and have OPWDD eligibility. That is all. Thank you.
Great. And if anyone is having issues with scanning the QR code, what is that website?
That is directly navigating you to aimservicesinc.org/supported decision making. So the direct link to our supported decision making tab on AIM Services website.
Okay, perfect. I'll grab that link here in a minute and pop that in the chat just in case if anyone is unable to scan the QR code for whatever reason here.
We did have
So
another question,
I
Blaze. Let me
think
look
that
at it.
answers, yeah. Let's see, Joyce asked, okay. Um, okay, here we go. Joyce asked, if an adult with developmental challenges is asking for a parent to help, I'm sorry, help with decisions, would this be something for that adult? And the answer to that is yes, right?
Yes, and they can utilize that HIPAA consent if they are wanting that other person to participate in their medical decisions. But it's really going to be dependent on each decision making area for which support they would like to receive support from.
Okay, gotcha. And then Carmen asked about the best method for referring participants when working with a broker.
Just navigating them to our website and filling out that contact us form, which is 3 questions: your name, a contact method, and what you are looking for. And then we will reach right out to you to discuss the best way to communicate with the decision maker if they are not able to sign them up themselves, or just educating that person a little bit more. So just put in that contact us free type text box what your question is and what support you would like, and we will give you a call or set up a video chat, or whichever is the easiest way for you to kind of unpack that question.
Gotcha. Okay, and then just as a follow-up, I mean, because there are people, of course, who do not have internet access. I assume in that case, the broker could possibly fill the info out on the person's
Absolutely.
behalf and get in touch that way.
Absolutely. There's a space on our intake form that also says if you are filling this out for yourself or on behalf of somebody else. So we are able to do that over the phone with you if that's easier. And this actually goes into another question we're getting. So I'm sorry, Blaze, I'm going to jump to that one
Go
because
right
it's a
ahead.
perfect segue. And I will go back to where the support can come from on the slide too. So there's a couple of questions from Richard that asks about support and what happens if there aren't support. And we did receive some questions in the initial questionnaire about if somebody is living under paid supports. So kind of answering all of those questions at once from your question, Blaze. So we are able to support people who live residentially. We're really removing all barriers associated with living in supports or needing communication devices or needing other languages. So the best way that we can support you is that initial call. We can understand where you're at, what you need as support, and then work on the back end to kind of remove some of those barriers. So if you do need support in filling out the contact form, we will work with you on what is best. If you are somebody who is living in supports in a residential setting and you only have paid supports as people that can help you, when we get to this phase 2 on educating supporters and understanding their role, the facilitator will work with them to say, okay, you are the residential manager for this person who is a decision maker. Are you okay, or is your agency supportive of you kind of removing your residential manager hat to help the decision maker navigate employment decisions or financial decisions? Again, this is legal capacity to make some decisions. So we want to make sure that the people who know you best are supporting you the best. And if your agency is supportive of that natural relationship, we want to honor that. And we do understand that many people living in supports have a reduced natural support network, or there's some gaps in that space. So we are able to put paid supports under your supported decision-making agreement because we are still working with them in this phase 2 capacity to understand their role as a supporter. So essentially they would just take off their virtual residential manager hat, put on their supporter hat, and support you in one of or all of these 7 steps to make a decision. So that can go for people who are living in supports, people whose families have passed away. This is a really robust support service through facilitation that navigates where each decision maker is at in their life and the level of support that they need. And then Richard also asked about the audit, how partnerships are audited. So I won't go back too many slides, but there are regulations under Article 82 that talk about exploitation, that talk about essentially overreaching a role as a supporter. And if there is any sort of neglect or abuse happening under that role of supporters, that is covered in the regulation. You could still, follow any legal channels if you need to, or if you know somebody is being exploited for any reasons. But that is, I'm not sure if that fully answers that one question on how are partnerships audited, but that legal protection is written into the law. Now, because we honor that people's lives evolve and change. If we are trying to embed this system that is truly sustainable, we're going to reach out to each decision maker and say, do you have a life plan that you attend? Do you have a circle of support meeting that you attend? Where can we naturally embed the sustainability of an agreement? And so if they do have a life plan, we'll reach out to the care manager if the decision maker asks us to, and they can revisit if your supported decision making agreement is still how you want it to be every 6 months or every year based on what you want. So if at that time the care manager is reaching out to you as the decision maker and you want to update and remove a supporter, there is an attachment at the end of your agreement that you can fill out and they can be removed from your agreement. If you want to add an additional person because now you've met some people and your experiences and somebody's really bringing value to your life, there's also an attachment to do that. So you can submit that saying you want this new person to be a supporter, and we will just re-engage with that person to have a phase 2 meeting or several, depending on the needs of the supporter in this capacity under facilitation, to make sure that they know their rules as a supporter. And then that person will then be in their agreement. Richard, I hope that answered your question, but if it didn't, please continue asking.
Yeah. Or Richard, if it's easier for you to raise your hand and talk your question out, we've got plenty of time for that too. Um, oh, looks like we have two folks who raised hands here. Let's see.
And Blaze, you did get a couple in the chat too. One
Oh,
was,
yeah. Go
yeah, no,
ahead.
no worries. Somebody just said thank you for this information. Have to log out, but we'll certainly follow up. Somebody had asked, do you anticipate that there would be broad use of supported decision making by people who are self-directing? Will this opportunity be promoted to people who are self-directing? Absolutely. There is nothing outside of the eligibility criteria that we are adding. So, you don't need to have a specific diagnosis or what have it. You just need to meet OPWDD eligibility, be 17 and a half, and want to do this. If you're self-directing, you can absolutely do this. If you're not self-directing, you can absolutely do this. The only caveat is just highlighting that if you're self-directing, there is no impact on your self-direction budget at this time.
Got it. There we
And one
go.
more blazed, there was one that came in on the chat. Somebody's got to jump off quickly. Is there a minimum number of people who can be supporters, and is there a maximum? You need to have at least one supporter, because that is what would make it an actual agreement with another person on it. And there is no maximum number.
Okay. I
Which
thought,
naturally goes to another point that Richard was asking on if people are passing away or are aging as supporters. So the more people in your life that you want as a supporter brings comfort to families when they are thinking about sustainability of your agreement or your decision-making support. Having additional people in there is a great way to show that you have people who love and care about you and want to support you.
gotcha. Are there hands still up? Um, I thought I saw a couple of raised hands, and then I don't know. I'm having an issue, or the hands disappeared. Um,
I can see them, Blaze. Angela Perrin and Richard Beck both have their hands raised.
okay. Uh, let's let's go to Angela first. You should be able to give her the keys to unmute. We'll go to Angela and then over to you, Richard.
Hmm.
Um, does it give you the option to ask to unmute?
It does not. Do you want me to stop sharing? Will that make it?
I I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm not sure why it's not letting me see the raised hands. But uh whatever questions you have, just eh, that's weird. I do apologize that this is being a little finicky here. Um, that it's not letting me see the hands because that
So we're
should.
getting some clarity, Blaze, in the chat. So Angela, you're talking about the cost of becoming a SDM. Can you just clarify, are you asking how to become an agency that is providing facilitation? So the agency that is helping okay, becoming a decision maker? Yes. Okay. So becoming a decision maker. So just level setting on the terminology. The decision maker is the person who meets the eligibility criteria and is going to get a supported decision-making agreement at the end of the three phases. That is the decision maker. So to become a decision maker, that's free. There is no cost right now because we have a grant covered by OPWDD. So free 99, our favorite price. You just meet OPWDD eligibility. I hope that was helpful. I see your messages coming in.
Free 99. I love that. That's that's
3.99.
fantastic.
We
Free
can't say it
99.
about much, so when we
R-
can.
Right, right. And we've got about 20 minutes for folks who have other questions as well. Um Richard, I'm sorry that we're having some issues with the hand raising. Um one day we'll have a webinar where everything just works perfectly. And today's just not that day. Um, so throw your questions in the your thoughts or whatnot in
I
the
think
Q&A
I
box and
see.
we'll get to it.
I
Or is
think
it in the
like
chat?
Richard put in a follow-up. No, the last person in the support chain needs help. Case managers are overworked. Is there a third party charged with checking these facilitators without the person in facilitation knowing to raise an issue? So that's a great question, and all the things that you're saying are valid. Yes, case managers have huge, huge caseloads. So something that has been built within the model is the thought of having a mentor supporting the facilitator. There were also a lot of regulations that were updated to embed supported decision making within those regulations, even in the context of, background checks and making sure that people are meeting those qualifications as a direct support professional. It is not necessarily anything that is built into this process right now about keeping that constant lookout of facilitation, but it is something that we can build into the process. If there is, something that you're aware of that has been a hot topic or an issue that you have seen, please reach out and let us know. Then we could be a little bit proactive on it. But, that very large role of having a third party just checking constantly for issues is just not something that exists right now. The good thing is that the regs themselves really articulates what supporters can and cannot do. So that kind of helps from the exploitation perspective. But again, that's not targeting the specific facilitator, that is targeting the supporters that have been identified by the decision maker. Long way to say thank you for raising it. We don't have anything right now, but it is something we need to keep on our radar, and we would welcome any feedback that you have on that.
attempting to merge uh, attempting to merge CUNY and SUNY students was an idea that was just thrown out there. How feasible do you think that could be?
If we had a magic wand, I feel like that would be very easy. But we do not yet. And it is a little bit out of our scope. Um, but if you have more thoughts about that on how that relates to supported decision making, I would love to talk more.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm just curious, how big is your SDM team at AIM?
Well, if you count people who are only working with supported decision making, we have four. But if you count all of the people acting as the capacity of a facilitator, we have dozens. And we are building that capacity with those subcontracted agencies throughout the state as well. So thankfully, we have 5 years to really trial and error many ideas and suggestions and kind of perfect what we're going to do as a recommendation for the state. We kind of think of ourselves as we're flying an airplane with a bunch of decision makers in it, and we also have to remodel inside and out and expand to a big Boeing 787 airplane. So we have to do all of the things while navigating decision makers who are actively in facilitation. So that's why all of these ideas and suggestions that you might have really truly are received by us and taken into consideration, because we have 5 years to really make all of this work for everybody. So it takes more than just me and Alexis and more than just AIM services ideas to really be something suitable for an entire state of people. So we welcome any feedback, any conversations, any questions. Even if we can't answer it, it's something that we will utilize to tailor in the future to answer, or to create an answer if there isn't one currently. So we have four. We're small but mighty and growing, but the ability for facilitators to work with decision makers is rapidly growing, which is the best news.
Yeah, we've got two geographically related questions here. So the first one is, do you have any in the southern tier areas, specifically uh, Kemming County? Um, and that's the first
Yeah.
one. Not yet. Okay. And
Yeah.
then
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, so for all of these questions about geography and who the providers are, we are going to let everybody know that through a newsletter blast, through our listserv. So we have not entered into formal contracts with our partners yet, so we can't share that right now. But as soon as we can, we will send that out to everybody who has registered for our distribution list. And Blaze, if that is, if we could also give you a resource of like, here's the link to sign up for the listserv, we could send that to you to pair with the presentation at the end of the week.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay,
Because I'm hoping to get the presentation out. Um, I'm shooting for Thursday.
perfect. I'll send
Uh,
an email way before then.
that uh, excellent. And that also answers Evan's question about the about New York City agencies as well. So, um, oh, and Eric's thought here with pairing the SUNY and CUNY extra credit and things of that sort of nature. Yeah, I think it's also important to note too that you're in what, year two of this grant,
One.
is it?
Still year
Yeah,
one.
you're okay, you're still in year one. Okay.
Yes.
So so and the work that y'all have done just in the first year, and look, I'll be perfectly transparent in saying um this is something, this specific webinar we'd been talking about for months, and the SDM team has been incredibly busy uh, creating the foundation, getting the word out, and doing presentations that we were finally able to make this happen in late August. So I can speak to the fact that the small and mighty team really is small and mighty and are doing um, some fantastic work. I guess, do you have a and maybe you don't. Maybe this is one of those crystal ball questions in terms of a ballpark idea as to when you would be able to announce some of those partnerships
Yeah.
or more formalized partnerships.
Yeah. So, as most things, they can get stuck in the bureaucracy and all of that stuff. So we do have a revised contract under review with the state. And so as soon as they give us the green light, then we can actually implement and effectuate the contracts with our partners. Our plan is actually to be on the road and training the next round of facilitators that are connected to these agencies in the next few months. So, September, October, November is when we will be traveling around the state and providing in-person trainings to those agencies. And our hope is that either before or shortly thereafter, we'd be able to enter into the contract with them so that we can also pay them to deliver the facilitation services. So I would say, honestly, the end of the year, but definitely first quarter of next year, we'll have publicly available information on all of the partners that we have, where they are in the state, and all of that good stuff.
For sure. Eric says, make the small and mighty regional supervisors. I'm just throwing that out there for transparency's sake, just so everyone, just so everyone knows what's being said. And even then, yeah, because I think there are what because of course in New York State, like DOH has their own regions, Department of Health, OPWDD, they have their own like everyone has their own set
Yeah.
of regions, and it's and the four definitely would not be enough as the overarching point that I'm making. So just a quick time check. We've got about 10 minutes
To
for
your
any
point,
other questions.
Blaze, the regions, we've been very thoughtful in just exactly what you were saying, building the foundation and infrastructure. So we understand that uh, people who live in Buffalo region and there's people who live in New York City and Long Island, and those populations of people are vastly different. So we are being very thoughtful in the subcontracted agencies to meet the needs of the population of New York as a whole, and not just saying that the city dictates everybody else or the countryside dictates the city, but really making sure that we are providing facilitated services throughout the state in regions that is most appropriate for each decision maker, in languages that are most appropriate, in communication styles that are needed. So that's part of building the infrastructure needed to provide this statewide. We are essentially barrier free, region free. So we are providing facilitation for every single New Yorker. In doing so, there's a lot of obstacles that we are overcoming. So it does take a little bit of time, and it does take some thoughtful approaches and how to navigate all of that. But as you know, Blaze, I grew up in very small upstate New York town. And so for me to support somebody in New York City isn't the most appropriate, not because I'm not supportive and can be a thoughtful facilitator, but I understand that people who live in New York City might want to be supported by another New York City resident. So we're just trying to make sure that that is something that we can match very thoughtfully, decision makers and facilitators. So you kind of speak the same language and you really understand what's happening in the resources around you for navigating decisions, what is available. And that really takes us collectively working as a state and not region, not county, not district, but as all New Yorkers. And so it's a really amazing opportunity that we have to be a statewide provider of facilitation, even with subcontracted agencies, because we get this great barrier-free ability to support every New Yorker, which not many areas or districts or departments can do. They're very heavily regulated and restricted. So that we only have a few eligibility requirements, I think is very incredible. And that this is free is also incredible. And so we're very lucky to be able to be the one that was awarded this 5-year grant and to find solutions or potential solutions to all of the barriers that I know everyone on this call is all too familiar with.
Absolutely. I mean, us country bumpkins, Lace, we can support everybody.
Yeah, we try.
uh, you're absolutely right. I mean, and you could spend 5 years building the foundation, but
Yes.
but y'all just don't have the time to do that. We've got a few more minutes here for any other questions that folks may have. Again, like I said a little while ago, but I'll say it again that we'll get the recording. I'll get the recording and presentation out to everyone who registered. I'm going to do that at some point Thursday. Um, so look out for that email. It'll be coming from me, Blaze Bryant, and both Lace and Alexis will be included on that email, so you can reach out to them directly with any specific questions, and they'll be sharing some resources with me in addition to the slides and the recording that I'll be sending, and I'll make sure those are included as well. Anyone else have any questions, or to you, Alexis and Lace, if there's anything that you want to add that I talked too much and you weren't able to?
I could talk for years and years on all things dignity of risk, supported decision making, what our plans are. But I really just want to say thank you all for being interested in hearing more. Our email and website and phone numbers are open, and we are happy to support any way possible. We are here to grow for everyone, and we need to hear people's feedback in order to do so. So thank you all for being present and asking questions and listening. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Emily asks, just to clarify, does the person, in order for a person to utilize SDM, they need to meet eligibility criteria, or do they just need to meet the eligibility or can they participate in SDM by just meeting the eligibility criteria for SDM without being connected to OPWDD?
Alexis, you want to take that one?
Yes, so Lace has this pulled up on the screen. So these are the only eligibility requirements to access this service. Must want to participate and be at least 17. Must meet OPWDD eligibility requirements. So that means you met OPWDD eligibility, even if you're not receiving services. That doesn't mean you need to be enrolled in the waiver. You don't need to be receiving waiver services. You just need to meet OPWDD eligibility. And then the note about it being free under the grant for the next 5 years. So I hope that answers your question, Emily.
So in other words, you do not need to be receiving OPWDD services
Nope.
to utilize SDM. You just need to meet their eligibility criteria.
Correct.
So some things we might ask for are TABS ID or the eligibility determination letter. And so on the slide, you'll also see 2 links on understanding what those eligibility requirements are.
And yes, they would have gone through the eligibility process. Yep, they will need that documentation to let us know that they have met OPWDD eligibility.
Right. It's kind of like if you're applying for like Social Security or Medicaid um or like the 55BC program to get state employment. You have to have some sort of documentation
Mhm.
proving eligibility because it really is, lack of a better word, it's on the surface SDM is viewed as a benefit. Um, just to break that down in simple terms and with respect to eligibility and documentation and stuff. I hope I didn't break that down too simply or incorrectly.
No, that makes perfect
Yeah, you
sense.
nailed it.
Having helped people apply for different uh benefits programs and things, I figured it would be helpful to frame it in that context. So hopefully that clears things up. Um, so we are
Thank you to the
at,
interpreters.
yes,
Hopefully I didn't talk too fast for you. I really appreciate you being present and being able to provide that service for other people. Thank you.
yeah. You both of you, I would have told you. You both had very good pacing for both the interpreters as well as our captioners. So we're at time. Thank you all very, very much. Our next, uh, absolutely, go ahead. We're done. So and we've got another webinar coming up in September on housing. So we'll be sharing that out with everybody. It's happening on the 24th. So with that, take care, and I'll be in touch later this week with the recording, slides, and other resources. So with that,
Thank you all.
thank you all and be well.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Blaze. Thank you.